Let's go kill some vampires. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're going to go back to the 90s for a Marvel Comics adaptation. But before we get into it, like, comment, subscribe. Join me here. I really would appreciate that. Click on the little notification bell. That way every time I upload a video, you'll get notified. And you can come check out what the hell's going on over here. Today we're going to talk about that film right there. Got to watch it over the weekend in 4K. Blade. This movie came out August 21st of 1998. It's rated R. It's 2 hours long. Had a budget of $45 million, and upon release, it made 70 in America and 131 worldwide. So it was a nice size hit for New Line and spawned 2 sequels. Now we're getting a reboot from Disney, which scares me immensely because I have a feeling they're going to go PG-13, and I'm not going back to PG-13 with this character. But anyway, the Blade movie was kicking around for a while. Actually, it even goes back to when New World Pictures were still around. They were going to make a version of Blade. At one point, it was conceived as a Western type film, horror film. Now, obviously, that's not what happened. That's not what we got, and that's probably a good thing. Same year we got John Carpenter's Vampire, so we did get our vampire Western movie anyway, which is a pretty damn good movie in its own right. Now, Wesley Snipes, because he plays the title character here, wanted to make a Black Panther movie back in the 90s. That was what he wanted to do. That was the comic book adaptation he was really passionate about making. But for whatever reason, that never happened, but he got offered this film, and he signed on, and he's even a producer on this film. And Wesley Snipes at the time had a nice career going. I was a huge Wesley Snipes fan back then. I still am, although he's not really doing much except for direct-to-video stuff. And actually, at first, New Line saw this as like a spoof comedy action film, but David Goyer convinced them this could be a serious, hard R action horror film. And they went with it. So Stephen Norrington got tapped to direct this film. Stephen Norrington, up until that point, was mostly known for effects work. So he hadn't directed this was like his first big break in directing a film. And we got Wesley Snipes as our title character, Blade. We have Chris Christopherson as Whistler. He is almost like Blade's keeper. He takes care of him, gives him his weapons, and points, he keeps the mission on point. And Blade is more than happy to keep it on point because he hates vampires and wants to kill them all. Stephen Dorff plays Deacon Frost. Now, Stephen Dorff wasn't the original choice for that role. They actually offered it to Jet Li, which would have been interesting. Jet Li against Wesley Snipes. But Jet Li chose to do Lethal Weapon 4 instead of this, so they brought in Stephen Dorff to play that role. Donald Logue plays Quinn, and he is Deacon Frost's right-hand man. And Udo Kier's in this film. And it's always nice to see Udo Kier show up. Now, I remember sitting in the theaters back in 98. I went with my buddy Chuck and a couple other friends the opening weekend to see this, and I didn't know anything about it. So I got sold on it because action vampire film with Wesley Snipes. I'm like, I'm in. Let's go watch it. Because my buddy Chuck was familiar with the comics a little bit, but I don't read comics, so I didn't know who this character was. And you got to give New Line prop for taking a chance on a character that nobody really knew unless you were a deep-cut comic book fan. I mean, especially coming off the disastrous Batman and Robin a year earlier. Comic book films were not in vogue at this time. This is the film that actually kind of jump-started the comic book boom. Because not too long after this, we got Spider-Man, we got Blade 2 and Blade Trinity, which we're going to talk about this month. And then X-Men and all that stuff came in, later on. So you got to give Blade some credit here. And we get that awesome opening scene, which does absolutely kick ass, with that guy with that Tracy Lords going to what he thinks is like a rave, and it turns out that it's all a bunch of vampires, and when the sprinklers start dousing everybody in blood, it's just phenomenal. What a way to start a film. And then obviously Blade shows up, and we get that big action set piece right in the beginning of the film. And again, this opening scene really does set the tone for the rest of the film. And Wesley Snipes was an accomplished martial artist, so he can do these things. And the opening scene is very convincing. It's well staged, it's well shot, the choreography looks great. And then we get to learn some backstory on Blade. Although we do meet another character because Quinn, Blade sets him on fire and he gets taken to the hospital in the morgue. Everybody thinks he's dead, which technically he is, I guess. And he ends up biting this one guy, and then Karen, who works at the hospital, he bites her. Blade shows up to finish him off, but he gets away. And Blade decides to take Karen back to his headquarters to try to save her because she was bit by Quinn. And he's trying to help her not turn into a vampire. And that pretty much starts our film. That is the opening 10, 12 minutes of this film. And it's a great opening 10, 12 minutes of this film. And then we're introduced to the vampires world, and where Deacon Frost comes into play. Like, he is not. We have the elders, the people that were vampires since birth, and Deacon Frost is not a vampire since birth. And he basically wants to take over the vampire ranks. He thinks their ways are old and tired, and he thinks humans should be their cattle, and we should be making backroom deals with them. And but this is the way they've been living for hundreds of years, living in conjunction with humans. So the elders don't want to rock the boat because they like the way what they have set out, and they kind of live nice lives. But Deacon wants to basically rule the world. He does not go for this let's live in harmony shit. So we really do get some backstory into the vampires, what's going on with their community. Like, there's these butting heads between Frost and Udo Kier's character, because totally two different ways of doing things. And the elders are not even interested in listening to Frost, and he is going to make them listen one way or another as the film goes forward. And then we get backstory into Blade, because Karen, they help her not to turn, and Whistler and Blade kind of tell her how they've got into what they're doing, and how Whistler found Blade in an alley, and when he realized what he was, he knew he could use him to help fight this war that's going on. So I gotta be honest, this film is really efficient in setting up the world, because I guarantee New Line didn't know if they were going to be able to make a sequel, if this was going to work or not. They really did take a chance on this character, because it's a character that nobody really knew who it was unless you're a deep cut comic book fan. So to take a chance on this film, they really had to get everything out of the way, like backstory. You had to do it very efficiently because you don't know if you're going to get another movie. So they do it really well, setting everything up and giving us backstory to these characters without showing us. I mean, we do see, flashbacks of Blade's mother and what happened to her, and how she got bit by a vampire while she was pregnant with Blade. We do get that, but they didn't have time to show the origin of it. They had to get going here because they probably weren't going to get a sequel. Now they did, thank God, because I do like the first two films a lot. But they do a nice job of setting up the world, setting up these characters in a very efficient way without dicking around like some movies do. So you got to give them props for that. This is very efficient storytelling here. And obviously we get action scene after action scene. And Frost's whole plan is to summon La Magra, the blood god, because he wants to take over the world. And he'll have an army of vampires, and they're just going to steamroll over to humans. And they perform this ritual at the end. And obviously we get our final confrontation between Frost and Blade. And Blade takes out Frost, and then at the end we get that last scene in Russia where Blade shows up because he's still hunting vampires, and that's the end of Blade 1. What to love about this film? Wesley Snipes is awesome. He was born to play Blade. I mean, Wesley Snipes was a really good actor. He didn't get enough credit. I mean, films like White Men Can't Jump, Rising Sun with Sean Connery, the action stuff, he's great in Demolition Man, Passenger 57. I always enjoyed Wesley Snipes' performances, and I always thought he was a better actor than most action stars. I just don't think he got a whole lot of chances to prove it. And I think he's really good here. Chris Christopherson's great as Whistler. I like Stephen Dorff as Deacon Frost. I know some people complain he's not really a match for Wesley Snipes, and yeah, I'd agree. Physically, he's not. But we're talking about vampire strength there, so you can work around that a little bit. I think the cast is really strong here. They're all very good. The practical effects are really well done. Pearl, they had to build the set around that. They had to use pounds and pounds of latex to make that actor look like that fat vampire. And so that was all practical. The action scenes, obviously Wesley Snipes is more than capable of doing the action scenes, and I think the action scenes are really well done. They're well shot. They're well staged. I've always enjoyed the action in this film. It's very satisfying. I would say the one drawback to this film is the CGI, the 90s CGI. In some scenes they hide it a little bit better than others, but watching it, especially in 4K, especially the blood god stuff at the end, when the blood is dripping and when Stephen Dorff's arm comes off and he puts it back on, and when he cuts him in half and the blood, it looks fake as shit. It does not hold up well at all. And that is probably one of the few drawbacks I have with this film, is the outdated PlayStation CGI that's in this film. Now, thank God, originally, when he was going to turn into La Magra, it was going to be like a swirling mass of blood. Now, so what we could have gotten could have been a lot worse. Fortunately enough, they realized they couldn't pull that off, and they scaled it back to a mano fight with some limited CGI. But when the CGI is on screen, it really looks dated. I mean, it looks bad, unfortunately. But overall, I still really enjoy this movie. This is a fantastic comic book film, an origin story for a character that not a lot of people knew about, and now we're getting a new iteration of him. Although I'm slightly concerned because Disney's going to water it down. And after seeing Wesley Snipes' version, I don't want to water down Blade, but that's just me. But overall, I've always liked Blade. I've always enjoyed it. It's one of Wesley Snipes' best films, I think, action films. And I would give Blade a 9 out of 10. I've always really liked this film, and we're gonna go through Blade 2 and Blade Trinity coming up. These are a couple films that I really, really enjoy. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for Blade. What are your thoughts on this film? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I would appreciate that. I'll be back on Thursday or maybe Friday. It'll drop with an out of the theater reaction for the new Scream film. I'm very excited. I'm going Thursday night to see it, the Alamo Drafthouse in Raleigh. So I'm excited about that. But until then, bye.